I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Allthemods 10. So today marks the day of expanding our bee empire. So over the last couple of episodes, we've been working on just getting bees set up, and this is a huge part of this mod pack. Like, I just really want to preface like how many bees actually exist in this pack. It is absolutely ridiculous, and is going to be honestly what makes the end game of this pack actually feasible. And so that means a few episodes should definitely be dedicated to the bees. And today we are going to be furthering our bee empire by, well, building this area up. And I tell you what, this already looks so good, especially on Journey Map. I mean, just zooming out and just looking at the castle build with these sticking out on the side here. Oh, it's just fantastic looking. And it's going to look even better when we fully round out these corners. And I want to have like windows here and things like that. I wanted to have kind of have like a greenhouse feel on the out exterior. Like, I got a bunch of plans for this, but things are going to take time to build. And in the meantime, we have some other things that we can be working on. For example, gathering up all of these basic bees. Now, something that we can do with bees that's honestly not too difficult is we can make Allthemodium, Vibranium, and Unobtainium. And this is a great introduction to just automating those basic resources that we've gathered so far. Now, one of the first bees that we should try to strive for, which is going to help us make these Allthemodium bees in the future, is going to be getting ourselves a skeletal bee. Now, skeletal bees are kind of the hard thing to get, as it's kind of RNG and we have to wait for it. I'm almost positive too, the zombie is also included in this category. And this is a bee that you can only get by taking a beehive, for example, and having it placed in a dark area underground. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dig out a hole, like right down under here, and I'm going to place these hives underground and then close up the hole. Like, that's all you have to do. And while we're working on everything else today, the goal is when we come back, these bees will have been produced and will be inside the hives, or at least inside this little area. We just want to make sure that it is entirely dark in here. I'm going to go ahead and place the advanced beehives. This is what's going to attract them. And the goal is that we'll end up, like I said, with those bees spawning in here. Just got to make sure it is completely dark. And outside of that, we should be good, right? So I'll just place this and make sure I have that one going up, and all of the light should be completely depleted in there. Now, just to verify, by the way, you can always hit, I believe it is F7, to make sure that it is entirely dark. It should be red down here with the light overlays enabled. So hopefully by the end of today's episode, that will have bees in it. That's the goal, at least. Now, these other bees are going to require a bit of effort and time and crafting. See, now each of these other bees right here actually get started from these nests. And so we're going to have to place nests down in their required biomes. And each one of them does have a specific biome that is required in order for the bee to be produced. And every single one of these bees are going to have specific requirements for that nest in order to produce said bee. For example, to make the resin bee, there's a couple of different ways we can get it, but in this particular example, we have a spruce nest and it produces a bee by giving it a honey treat. And this is where I said pollen is really going to play a pivotal role. But we can actually accelerate this process by not needing as many honey treats if we simply have a time wand. Now, just some things to note. You want to make sure that you can control the weather, because if it is raining, these bees will go back into their hive, and we don't really want that. A couple of ways we can control the weather is by using, for example, a ritual. There is a ritual that can change the weather from ours. So you have one that can make sure it is daytime, which that's not that big of a deal, but basic cloud shaping, if you just use this in a brazier, will turn the weather from rainy or thunderstorming to day. It basically clears the weather. Really great for later on if the weather event happens to take place. Because yeah, it can be really annoying when you're trying to get a particular bee to spawn and then it just goes right back inside the nest and you can't grab it. Now, you're supposed to be able to punch it with a stick to actually get it out, but yeah, that doesn't always work. Now, having honey treats auto-craftable is going to save you so much time, and making sure that you have some sort of essence for the honeycombs is going to be so much easier on you. And like I said, that's where the pollen comes into play, and we're actually capturing the pollen from our hives, so we don't even really need to travel much back and forth to the Bumble Zone. It was just kind of a nice helping hand getting us started. Now, right-clicking on here, it starts the timer, and we can accelerate this to the max to reduce that significantly. And this is pretty nice. Like, we don't have to consume a ton of these honey treats, which typically you would. But thanks to the Dyer's Wand, oh man, it makes this so much better. I remember like going through thousands, it seemed like, of honey treats to be able to get the number of bees that I needed a while ago. But notice, by the way, we are getting the same bee. Like, that was the same kind of bee. We have a yellow and a green carpenter bee. So you can get duplicates, by the way, whenever you do this. But after I get the bee, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply remove this, right? We got a yellow and a green carpenter bee. So no longer do I need a bee from that particular nest. And so what I'll do is I'll start working my way down. This one requires a spruce nest to potentially get ourselves a resin bee. So let's get that placed in and repeat this same process. Now, that's not going to be the same for every hive, as like I said, some hives require you to go into other biomes and even other dimensions for some of them later on. But there we go. We now have a resin bee. Now, it looks like the best way to end up getting the next one, which is a blue banded bee, is by using a cherry nest. Very, very nice. I love that we don't have to go into a special biome for these. Imagine needing to go into like a dark oak forest for each one of these, like if it required a dark oak nest, or for example, like a forest for an oak. Now, another majority set of bees are going to come out of the stone. So I'm going to be here a little bit working on the stone bees, or the ones that specifically come out of here. And it's going to be a mason and a digger in this particular case. Man, my luck is honestly too good right now. I don't always end up getting them directly in a row right here, but I did get both of those. What I'm working on now will get us a leaf cutter, chocolate, and ashy, which is going to be the dirt. We just got ourselves a leaf cutter. I've just got to get the rest of them. There's the chocolate, and finally an ashy bee, which, yeah, I ended up getting a lot of leaf cutter bees. Now, I did end up getting duplicates here, and when I got duplicates, basically what I want to do is I want to keep the highest productivity one and toss the rest of them into my system. For example, this is a medium. I'm just going to keep these, and I'm storing them all inside of this backpack. But now is when we finally get into the different biome locations. For example, to get the sweet bee, I'm going to need a snow nest, which the snow nest has some specific requirements underneath the information here. It says this needs to be in a cold biome. And with our handy dandy nature's compass, we can definitely search for a cold biome. How about a snowy plains, for example? Or how about a snowy slopes that's not 4,000 blocks away? And for example, this should definitely work. If there's snow like that, that'll probably work. And you'll definitely know it works whenever, for example, you put the treat in and it starts to work just like the other hives. And really, there's only a couple bees that actually require this special sort of hive placement. There's this one. There's also a slimy one that we're going to need to be in a swamp for. And I think there's the sand one needs to be in a desert, for example. And the reed needs to be in a river. Speaking of that reed bee, here we go. There, it's in a river biome. And yes, accelerated just like the rest. And this should grant us, well, not a mason bee, but it should grant us a reed bee. But like I said, there are some bees that spawn out of here that are not the ones that we need. Like this one has a chance of doing the mason, but also the reed. Reed's the only one that we really need. And there it is. But yes, they do take damage in water. Typical bee issues. So now to get our slime bee, I am onwards to a swamp biome. I love the being able to dash while flying. It's so nice. Oh, and on my adventures here, look. Yes, a full apotheosis is in here now, which means that these towers are a great way to hoard up, by the way, on these. And if you're wondering exactly what these are called, these structures, they are called towers. This is main tower, apparently, or tower main. Apparently, though, each of these towers, for example, yeah. Oh, gosh. I did not mean to do that. How bad would it have been if the entity went through? I meant to break it. If the entity went through our portal and blew up our base. Oh no, every time. Why do I do this? Oh, I should check. Okay, I'm just gonna check real quick. Can TNT go through here? I mean, cobblestone walls ended up going through here. I think we're safe. Whew, thank goodness. Okay, onward to the swamp. Now, sometimes when you're in biomes like this, you can actually find bees just kind of floating around, which could be helpful for not needing to go after some of these basic hives. But honestly, just doing them in order really, really helps get the whole setup started. You know, thankfully, once this is done, we don't really have to worry about doing it anymore, right? That's kind of the good part. I mean, there are a few hives that we are going to have to do over and over again, but not always these, right? We're not going to have to worry about the swamps or stuff. The crystalline bee that we have to do in the nether, that one we do need a lot of. By the way, is that a slime bee? It is. It's just a slime bee just hovering around. I might as well just grab it, right? Because there could be slime nests also just spawned in the world. Now, I think that's most of our basic bees that we have to farm in the overworld. The rest of them are just contained within the nether. Now, thankfully, all of the ones that require the nether can all be done in the same biome. Like, they don't require being in any particular biome. So I can go ahead and set them all up just like this. And we can go ahead and get started with farming them. Now, the only one we're going to need a lot more of is the quartz version, which gives us the crystal bee. I do believe, I think most of them, though, are going to work just fine. And each one of these, they do require, like, a specific thing. For example, the glowstone, to get it started, requires glowstone, which makes sense. The soul bee, for example, it requires a gas tier. And then quartz, I do believe, also requires quartz. So kind of basically what you see is what it'll give you or need. Right now, though, I'm just going to get one each. So now I have a magmatic. I also have a glowing, crystalline, and ghostly bee. And gold bee. By the way, ghostly bee, if you want to farm this, super, super easy to just throw in a hive. And bam, you'll be able to gather up, I mean, from the combs, like a 5% chance of getting a gas tier. Now, the only other bee that I think we're going to need as of right now is going to be the ender bee, and we may need more of these as well in the future. But just having one at the start will allow us to start getting our breeding infrastructure up and running. Be careful with these guys, though. Ender bees, they don't like to stay in one place too long. Now, another bee that we can go after is going to be a water bee. This just requires you to fish in a river. And it's really good if you have like a supremium fishing rod and then like put some enchants on that thing, and it's easy to get this. We'll work on this whenever we actually need it, but just wanted to mention there are some bees that you actually have to fish up. And when you do that, just be ready to go with a honey treat, because they will be angry with you when you fish them up. And they also take damage. So just be careful and then have some way to capture it, but definitely have some way to pacify it. And if they happen to sting you, you can always re-equip a stinger back on them just to save their life. The honey tree, though, if you right click it on an angry bee, will make it happy with you again. Now, I just want to check. I haven't been at the base much, but do we by chance have any bees in here? No, we do not. And I honestly, I don't know if having an area claimed and having a torch will prevent these from spawning. I would assume not. They shouldn't be considered like hostile mobs. So now this is a work in progress. I'm kind of mimicking the same sort of style that I've been doing here. And I know this is kind of jarring, just jump cutting to this, but I will promise you it is nothing fancy. I am literally copying basically the same structure idea, and I just ran it through here. So all I'm doing is every pillar, I'm just putting an archway here, and then I just extended this utilizing those fine stone pillars. And the same sort of idea here, except I decided to place in some glass, just kind of testing things. I still think that I want this to be fully enclosed, or maybe have a slight arch in it just to kind of give it a little bit of an extra fill. But even if it was left like this, I still think this is honestly beautiful in its own way. And this right here would be the thing that I would want to have a large, tall window on. But enough of the building side of things, right? Because we really need to focus heavily on the productive side of things. And so what do we do after we have all of those individual things? Well, we need to start focusing on how we can breed things together to, for example, allow us to have an unobtainium bee, for example. And so you're going to start to see a breeding chamber, and this is where things get very interesting. Now, in the past, this used to be a very timely process. Like, this whole thing used to take a while to do the breeding part of the bees. And then also you're going to want an incubator, right? So there's a couple of ways we can do this. Let's see, incubator. There we go. An incubator is going to allow us to turn the baby bees after they've been bred into adult bees, and it just makes life a whole lot quicker. So let's go ahead and grab some glass for this and make that daylight sensor. Perfect. And bam. So now we have a couple of different things, right? We're going to need the breeder. The breeder does require a special bee thing, and also it looks like some flowers. That's pretty straightforward. But what is going to make these machines really pop? Looks like we also need roses, apparently. What's going to really make these pop is going to be Oh, the speed upgrades, and there is a new tier. And so a nice little birch forest here. Grab some of those roses and just a hefty amount of bone meal to duplicate those. And now perfect. We're really only going to need like one of each of these. So what we have is we'll have a breeding chamber and we also have the incubator. Now we do need to carry the items from here into here. And I think just a pipe of any kind will do just the job, or like a logistical transporter. That actually might not be a bad idea for mechanism. And I guess the cool part about the logistical transporter, right, is we can kind of see the item actually flowing through the pipe, which I find to be kind of cool. And I'll do a barrel. So the input actually on this really isn't that important. There is an input that needs to be in place here. And so we'll have an import chest that's going to be a barrel that goes right here. This needs honey treats in order to actually work. So we need to disconnect here, but I'm also going to have this barrel be the output that pulls the finished bee into this barrel. Too bad on the logistical side, might be a little bit ugly, but it is what it is, right? So I'm hoping that this allows me to pull from all sides so it doesn't have to worry specifically about the face. That would complicate things a little bit, but it is a little bit of trial and error in this case, right? So yeah, the basic here, we're probably gonna be doing this by hand, so don't really need anything there. I guess now we just need to figure out and give it power with a gate. And let's talk about these speed upgrades, right? Because that's what's gonna make this really, really pop. These are typically very, very slow, but the productive bees speed upgrade, this one, this speedier, makes this so fast. Honestly, breeding has never been faster with this setup. Now, don't get me wrong, some bees can be bred in world. Most of these bees can be done in world. This gives you a little bit more control over what bees you're actually getting as a byproduct. Now that we got that set up, it's time to start going down the family tree of these bees. And this is going to be kind of important, right? So this requires a withered bee, and a withered bee we can't do just yet until we get a skeleton bee. This actually does require an in-world interaction where we right-click a wither rose onto a skeletal bee, and that's going to produce a withered bee. Then we can, of course, use that withered bee in further operations. Nothing really gets consumed in this operation, but in the one that actually requires you to hand convert, this will actually change the base bee, meaning that you will lose your skeletal bee. So knowing that, I can go ahead and hit A over the withered bee, and then I'll also hit A over the skeletal bee, just to make sure that those are placed in and we can kind of see them. Now, the ancient bee is the start of another line. The ancient bee is how you actually make netherite. So the ancient bee does require diamond bees, and it requires blocks of netherite, so it will consume our diamond bees. To get diamond bees, we are going to need lapis bees and our base ender bee that we ended up getting. To get lapis bees, we are going to need a blue banded bee and a redstone bee, right? So we're seeing all of these things come full circle. And then we also, to get that bee, we are going to need a chocolate and glowstone bee. So this is this is our start right here, is going to be the glowing and chocolate bee. And let's grab a barrel. Actually, let's just place our backpack down here. And this backpack contains all of those base bees. So a chocolate and a glowing, we just need to look through our base bees and find our chocolate and find our glowing. There we go. Grab those, and we just need to put this in here. And when we do this, we're going to see that we get a bee. Now, some bees, for example, the ones that produce like iron bees, can be pulled back out and placed back in, and it will actually change the type of bee that it is going to generate. And you can see, remove and put back a cage to change its output. That is for some things. This one, not exactly the case. But this is a really easy bee to make. So to make a redstone bee, we are going to need this. And we're probably going to be making more than one bee. We're also going to need a ton of treats. That is just something that we are going to need a lot of. Each time, I think it takes like 15 treats or something like that to take a baby bee to a full bee. And so by putting those treats in here, those should get auto added into here. And that's going to be our biggest limiting factor, right? It's just making sure this incubator has enough treats. Now, of course, if you have yourself an iron golem farm or a few set up, you probably have a ton of poppies for these operations. But if not, keep in mind that you can make more poppies by using pollen puffs on those flowers, and you can duplicate them. So yeah, you just basically shoot the pollen puffs on here, and notice it's going to give us even more flowers. Nice little feature. So let's go ahead and breed this bee up, and we're going to see how fast this actually is. As soon as I put this flower in, look how quickly that generated. Like, it generated so fast, that went over here, and the bee should have been produced, but we don't have a cage in here yet. So as soon as we put a cage in, that then got produced, got sent over here. It instantly turned into an adult, and I'm just telling you, these speed upgrades, if you can make them, because my goodness, they are incredibly fast. I mean, honestly, if you blinked just then, you definitely missed this whole operation. Now, thankfully, there's not a lot of converting bees, but this really barely touches the surface of bees doing this method of breeding, because there's actually another way that we can get bees that requires genetic research. And that is where things get a little bit more complicated when you actually need to make eggs. Not doing that today, but just wanted to mention that if you want to get a spawn egg, it does require the genetic researching aspect of this mod. And let me tell you, the documentation is very lacking, but and JEI support very lacking, but I will say that it is all possible and honestly not too difficult to do. Now, I do want to check on my bees down here. Ooh, look, we have a zombie. Do we have any other bees? Okay, we got a zombie in there. Still no skelly bee, but we definitely have a zombie. And I wanted to grab a stick, and I do want to test this out. We're supposed to be able to use like a stick, right? And punch on the hive, yeah, to get the bee out. So if you want to get a bee out of a hive, you can always punch it with a stick to get it out. But man, we still did not get ourselves a skelly bee. We have 2 zombies, which is really good, but still lacking that skelly bee. All we really need is 1 for right now. Maybe by the time we breed up to the diamond, we'll have 1. Those bees are honestly my biggest complaint. Well, there's actually the nomad bee and a couple of others, but still, that bee. So time consuming that bee is. Okay, so now that we have ourselves a lovely redstone bee, we can probably take these bees back out and just toss them back in our bag so that way we can find them later on. Up next is going to be combining a blue banded bee, one of our base bees, with that freshly created redstone bee. That combined together will give us the lapis. So more poppies. Should just keep these honestly in my inventory. The poppies in here, that gets produced, sent over, and voila, we have ourselves a lapis bee. And then up next, we should be making the diamond bee, is going to be the lapis and ender bee. Combine those together, and we get ourselves diamond bees. And this is where we are probably going to want maybe more than 1 if we make more ancient bees down the road. But for right now, we can probably just get by with just producing 1. Actually, no, we probably will need 2, right? Because we want to keep a diamond bee for later use. The best way to do conversions, I recommend placing down some trapdoors like this, and then placing a fence post directly on top of that, closing it up, and there we go. So netherite, we're going to need an entire block of netherite to do this conversion to get our ancient bee. And we are going to need a replacement cage. So place this in, get ready. And by the way, this should stay in here, should not move or anything like that. Has nowhere to path to, so we can just simply convert it by clicking the block, and voila. One of the easiest ways to get yourself a netherite bee. So now it's the moment of truth. We have the ability and base bees to make just about every bee. There are so many bee possibilities and combinations that we can do now. My primary goal though is to hopefully get some Allthemodium and Vibranium. At least 1 of each bee would be nice. 5 would be like fantastic. But you know what? I am still waiting on these bees. And I still don't think we have a skeleton bee yet. So there was no way I thought this would actually work. Oh, it does work. You can tick accelerate these in the darkness. And it works. Oh, I am actually blown away. Yes, okay, that changes everything. Tick accelerating this in the dark allows you to essentially skip that progression. I know it's incredibly dark right now, but it's just... oh my goodness, there's so many of them now. So I'm just as blown away as you are. I've always kind of dreaded making that specific bee, but now that I know I can tick accelerate that hive while standing in the darkness and it makes it go faster, oh my gosh, the new things you discover every time you play something. So, well, that changes a lot, right? So now that I have myself a skeleton bee, we can go ahead and convert 1 of them. And I'll place that down there and use a wither rose on it to convert it into a withered bee. Perfect. And we just need a cage, right, to get it out of here. And perfect. So now we have everything to make all of the Allthemodium bees. So now I guess first step, just using some flowers with the ancient and withered bee. That is pretty straightforward. Ancient, withered bee. This produces the Allthemodium bee. We're going to want 5 of these. So I'll just go ahead and get 5. There's 3, there's 4, and 5. Now for Vibranium, we are going to need to pop one of our draconic bees out of its hive, and we'll be using that next. And there we go, the Vibranium bee. This does use some dust. I'm going to do 5 of those and control it by just using the flowers and placing this in. There we go. Gosh, that is so fast. Man, I remember doing this so long ago, and I don't ever remember these existing. Now, to make the Unobtainium bee, we just need all the Allthemodium bee, Vibranium bee with the Unobtainium and Vibranium down here. And we probably want to choose like the highest version we have. For example, productivity high right here. That is also dineural, which is just fine. I'm going to place that in with this. So that should be other way around possibly. I don't think it matters. There we go. Okay, so Allthemodium, which is going to receive Vibranium on this side, which I have just enough. It's going to take 20 to get 5. And this one, there we go. So that is spitting out Unobtainium bees now. I really wish you could hold shift and the cages would actually display the actual the mob icon like this. But anyways, these are Allthemodium. There's a row of Vibranium and a row of Unobtainium. And man, we are about to have Allthemodium, Vibranium, and Unobtainium. It's a lot to say. All automated. So now the real fun, setting up the rest of the automation, taking all of our bees, for example, and lining them up in a row. So I can take all of these, toss them in after I put the Omega upgrade in. And there we go. Allthemodium fired up and ready to start working. Now, we do not have the item on the feeding slab just yet, but that will come next. We'll go ahead and toss this in. Let's make sure to get that productivity and also this one. And I'm just going to line them up in the order. There we go. The popping sound is so satisfying. And there we go. Unobtainium. Oh, this very, very nice. Now, each of these bees are going to need their base block, and we just fit that inside of the feeding slab just like so in any spot. Doesn't really matter. And yeah, this is going to start operating. Already 35 comb. That is so many. Now, to get this linked in, I'll show you how easy it is using my SFM program. If you want to recheck this, this is all I have set up for the SFM. Super, super simple. Just basically reg checking for puff and comb, and that's basically it. But all I have to do is select hive, and we just add these to hive, actually not pollen. We add these to hive. There we go. And then we just simply right click to push that to the manager, and all of these combs should get pulled out of here. Yep, as soon as there's room for them to get pulled out. Now, adding the speedier in here makes this process go a bit faster, and you can see already this is working really, really well. We may in the future, though, need more centrifuges. And because of how we have this all set up, it should be as easy as just placing in some compacting drawers. And I'm going to place in this one, by the way. These are the 3 times compacting, and I will place in Allthemodium in this one. So now Allthemodium should store up in there. Then we have Vibranium, and last but not least, Unobtainium, and all of this can now be inserted in. Now, just for the showcase, I'm almost positive this is how the bee jars work. You can use the bee cage on the bee jar, and it will put the bee in. And I went ahead and made one more of all of these bees. But Allthemodium bee, no, it doesn't just go into the bee cage. I got to figure out how to get it into the jar. Oh, you should have read it more. We have to hopper them in for it to work. So the Allthemodium bee goes in there, and there we go. Okay. Oh, but I don't think it's going to display the bee like I think it is. Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, Vibranium bee. They're all going to look like the generic bees. They're not rendering the custom model. That's sad. Okay, now hear me out. I might be able, if I can break this jar. Okay, I think we can hopper this back out. I might be able to use dire things instead to actually render these out. This sounds like craziness. Oh wait, does it delete the bee? Oh, it just deletes the bee. Okay, so yeah, don't break the beehive. Instead, use a pipe to get it out of the beehive first. I guess I learned the hard way. Now I do want to try another way to potentially display the bees. So let's just try this on the Vibranium. The Unobtainium one is a little bit harder to make. Can I catch it in a creature catcher? And does it render this way? Oh, it does. Okay. And then I can place an item frame here in the creature catcher. Oh, and it does render. I wonder if I could place this the opposite direction, or will it, is it only going to ever face we're only ever going to be able to see the rear end of the bee. You know what? I think I'll settle with this. Yeah, that way I can at least see what the bee looks like. And you know what? It doesn't look half bad. There we go. We have all of our bees inside of item frames. I wish we had the invisible item frames. That'd be so cool. But yes, this actually works out quite nice. Wait, I am so dumb. I forgot that you can actually rotate items on an item frame. That means they can actually go on top, and all I have to do is simply rotate them in the orientation that I want them displayed in. Oh, what is wrong with me? This is so much nicer looking. Oh, look at that. You know what? I can use these framed item frames, and this is even better. So yeah, I'm getting a little bit too carried away. Oh, this ends up resulting in the exact same issue where now it doesn't render. Okay, so vanilla frames it is. Now I know I may only have gotten 3 hives set up, but this is super, super huge. These 3 bees are going to be fundamental for us auto-crafting just about anything in the future, and the future is starting to look very bright. Man, is it just me, or is it getting warm up here? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and hopefully you'll learn something new, whether it was about productive bees or accelerating to be able to get the skelly bee. Like, that one was huge. And if you did, click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And well, give this video, guys, a huge thumbs up. And I look forward to, of course, seeing you guys in the next episode. And with that being said, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that huge thanks is going to go out to Tiz over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Guys, I, of course, thank you all so very much. All of those who choose to support me in a financial way, it really does help make these videos possible, and I couldn't honestly do it without you guys. So thank you all so very much. Enjoy your perks, and to the rest of you, thank you so very much. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode, and as always, thanks for watching.